Hello, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to another wonderful, wild, and wonder-filled Wow Wednesday. I am your host, Nancy Matthews, one of the founders of Women's Prosperity Network, and it's our privilege to be able to be with you every Wednesday morning to bring you this midweek boost of motivation, education, and inspiration. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you to so many of you who have been listening in for the past 15 years as we bring you this weekly show. It's an honor to be a support to you and know that our entire community is here to meet you where you're at and support where it is that you want to go, those dreams and goals you're looking to fulfill. And that's our mission and our purpose. So thank you for being a part of our community. We've got lots of ways for you to connect every single month to get inspiration, education, and also connection with one another. So be sure to go to our website and see all the ways that we support you in our varying levels of membership. So once again, meet you where you're at to support you where you want to go. Today, I am super excited to introduce you to a woman that I met through another one of our colleagues. Jill Lublin is who introduced us. And then once she introduced us, I found we were hanging out in the same room. So it's very fun. I love how that circle, gets closer and closer. Randy Pizer is with us today, and we're going to be having a conversation about how to get a book deal with a publisher. So get your pen and paper handy because I know we're going to be jam-packed with wisdom and nuggets from our guest. Let me tell you a little bit about her and her background, and then we'll jump right in. Randy edits and ghostwrites books and gets authors book deals with literary agents and publishers. Her clients have been featured on Hallmark TV, the Daily Mail TV, in Oprah, Cosmo, and Time magazines, and also on the Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller lists. The books can be found in airports, bookstores, FedEx offices, Office Max stores, and so many more. He is the author of, I forgot about this, he's so funny. She's the author of Crappy to Happy, as featured in the movie Eat, Pray, Love. Pretty cool. The Power of Miracle Thinking and the Write a Book program. You can get more information at author1stop.com. And if you look up the word savvy in the dictionary, a picture of Randy appears, says David Trayman, a branding strategist. I am so grateful to have you with us and for all the wisdom and great ideas you've personally given me in the field of writing my next book. So thanks, Randy.
Very happy to be here. Speaking of, you talked about motivation and wisdom, and I actually would really like to start with kind of my challenge to everyone who is going to listen to this or watch this webinar. And like when in nonfiction, often if you're writing a book or you're reading a book, you'll see there's like quotes usually at the top of each chapter. And so this is my heartfelt challenge to everyone watching and listening. Be the person that other people quote. You be the person that other people create memes off of. It's your uniqueness, your voice, it's your knowledge and your impact that you're here to make. So whatever you're writing, like pull a sentence, pull out the takeaway, something really powerful from what you're writing, and put it as, they call it, a pull quote in the magazine world. Put your quote at the top so that your voice is the one that's contributing.
I love that. That's a great challenge.
Mhm.
I'm taking it on, and I actually started making a list of some of the things, but I've never put it out there. I want to be Googleable like that. I love that.
Right, right. Like I'll share with you one of mine. When I was writing my first book, I was writing this book, Crappy to Happy. I didn't even know I was writing a book. I was just writing because the words were birthing themselves and I was having fun in the process. In fact, I was having so much fun that I had this thought and I actually typed it out in big letters and put it up, taped it to my wall above my laptop. Actually, it was a Mac Junior Classic. We're going back. It wasn't even a laptop. I think we were in the pre-laptop days then. But what I wrote was that which is seeded in joy can only result in joy. That which is seeded in joy can only result in joy. So I was having so much fun in the process. And look what happened. I mean, not only did it launch my whole career, this is back in like, in the late 90s, not only did it launch my career as an author, but there's Julia Roberts years later holding up my Crappy to Happy book in the movie Eat, Pray, Love and buying it in a bookstore scene. Something I didn't even know. I'm just sitting in a movie theater opening night of Eat, Pray, Love. And there's Julia Roberts holding my book. I had no idea my book was even in the movie. So, I mean, that which is seeded in joy can only result in joy. So if writing is joyful for you, you will get it done. If it's not, it's going to be an option and it'll never get done. But
Right,
let it be a
right. All right.
joyful process if you're going to do it.
Yeah. I love this. And so I'm going to just start off asking some questions. Would that be
Please.
okay?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Just jump in.
And coming off of what you just said, writing being joyful, I know for myself and so many others that I've spoken to, that staring at that blank page, or we've all seen the movie scene with the guy with the manual typewriter and he puts the paper and he sits down and crumbles it up and starts over. It's another one. Like, how do we just make it a joyful process?
So, one of the things that I learned many, many years ago is don't start at the beginning. I tell people if you're going to write, I start with something that I call chunks of gold. And what that means is I'm doing a brain dump and I'm going to get everything out of my head that I might possibly want to write about. And some of it will stay in the book, some of it won't. I just create a large Word document and I separate it out with just like, a line that shows this is a separate thought. So quotes, ideas, thoughts, paragraphs, anecdotes, whatever I'm thinking of, facts, anything, just brain dump. That's the chunks of gold. In my company, we do a lot of ghostwriting and a lot of book coaching, and we always do the introduction and the conclusion last because you'll know what you've basically written about by the time you get towards the end of your book. Then go back and do your introduction. So just don't worry about it. Just start from wherever you're starting.
So, beautiful advice. And, I have two different books that I'm working on, and that's what I've done for both of those. So, we'll talk about next steps after that. But first, I want to go to, let's get on this track about getting a book deal because anybody
Sure.
can write and do self-publishing, but getting a book deal is a whole different ball of wax.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I mean, my lane is to help people get your content right. That means the editing, the ghostwriting, the book coaching, whatever it takes to make sure your content is absolutely stellar. And then my lane is to pitch, and I pitch New York agents and publishers. So that's my lane. But I also like to tell people I am not attached and I have no agenda. So the only thing I want for each person is what is highest and best for them, depending on their goals. So I want to start by talking about what the goals are to describe the difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing, because I do like both approaches. And I've done both with my own books. So Crappy to Happy came out through a traditional publisher, sold out 7,500 copies, its entire print run. And my second book, The Power of Miracle Thinking, was, I shopped it, my agent shopped it to 60 publishers, and they all said, oh no, the miracle thing's been done. And so I self-published. And so I like both for different reasons. So what I tell people is, generally speaking, if you want to get a book out quickly, you want to make more money typically per book, you want control over your cover design and absolutely every single word you've ever written, self-publish.
Mm-hmm.
If, however, you're using your book for your career, definitely try for a traditional publisher. Why? The leverage is amazing. The media you can get is just phenomenal. I mean, my first-time authors in Oprah Magazine, Time Magazine, airport bookstores, Option for Hollywood Film. I mean, all of these
Wow.
amazing things that have happened that you just can't predict these kinds of things. foreign rights. It just the list can just go bulk sales. The list can go on and on and on. So I tell people if you're using it for your career, you're open to getting a lot more media, a lot more visibility, and
Mhm.
of course, bookstore distribution. Timing, there's a different issue in timing from the time a contract is offered by a publisher. It usually takes a year to a year and a half before a book comes out. Traditional publishing is the long game. And I will only pitch something if it's absolutely stellar and I think it's positioned correctly in every possible way to get a book deal.
Mhm, mhm. Really good. And so when you get that book deal, there's some myths I want to bust about getting book deals, right? So first of all, they're not paying people for books anymore. You can't get those big,
Let's talk
contracts or
about advances. Let's talk
advances.
about the moolah, the money.
Yeah,
So pre-COVID, I had a number of authors who we were able to get the right agents to do big bidding wars, six-figure deals, just 12 publishers in the bidding wars. I mean, these really big deals. During COVID, I started seeing $30,000 advances. I've seen advances now at $10,000. That's what I see some of my clients are getting right now. But what I'm also seeing are typically higher royalties overall. So where royalties used to be maybe 8, 10, and 12%, depending on the amount of books sold, because they're usually tiered. Now I'm seeing 15 and 20%. I'm seeing some 30% and some even 50% through traditional publisher,
interesting.
depending on when the books hit a certain amount of sales.
So it sounds like the money from the publisher is still available. It's just presented in a different way. So instead of getting a bigger
Right,
hit front end, you get more participation on the back end.
right.
Yeah, which to me is a symptom of how publishing industry itself has changed. They've taken financial hits too, right? So they're going to
Well,
bank on the book.
yes. So, I was talking with a gentleman who I've known for a number of years because we're both on faculty for a national organization, and he teaches about how to get a New York Times bestseller. And I learned information from him even recently after my 20, almost 25 years in this industry that I did not know. I did not know, for example, that publishers pay a co-op fee per book. Basically, they're renting space in a Barnes and Noble in every bookstore. They pay a co-op fee to have each book on that shelf, and they're paying that co-op fee per book. In a
Wow.
difference to, the distributors that get paid and everyone else in the food chain that gets paid, or maybe the 30, 40, or $50,000 that they're paying to publish the book. So I mean, they're looking to recoup their part of expenses too.
Right. So you talked about some, and I'll call them pros and cons, pluses and minuses for choosing whether you want to self-publish or get a traditional publisher. And is it true that through traditional publishing, one of the, bigger publishing houses, they'll do more work to promote the book, so it doesn't fall on me to do all the promotion?
I would say that's not exactly true. They typically throw in like 3 or 4 months prior to launch, and then typically 6 months after launch to be
Okay.
promoting. So I'll share with you like the way that Barnes and Noble puts books on shelves. If you walk into a Barnes and Noble and you see books on tabletops, why are those books on tabletops versus books on shelves? And so this is another tip the information that I learned from the guy who does the New York Times bestseller programs. And he told me that Barnes and Noble rates every single book. Once the rating is established, that's that rating forever. The rating apparently does not change. And so the books that have the A rating are the ones that are going to be on the tables. They're the ones that are going to stay there the longest. And so if it's not an A rating, if it's a B, C, or D rating, those books are going to stay in the stores for a less amount of time unless there's traction, there's real traction. And that traction comes as a result of authors promoting and publishers promoting.
Doing it
So
together.
I'd say it's
Okay.
both. So traditional publishers look at your numbers. I tell people there's two parts to get a book deal. One part has to do with your content. The other part is strictly about numbers. And so what do I mean by numbers? Your visibility, the amount of engagement you have, your social media. So one publisher told me they go to a website, and you can please write this down if you're really
Mhm.
serious about publishing through a traditional publisher. So I found this out from a publisher. I didn't know about it before. They go to a website called socialblade.com. You can look yourself up on it because it shows the amount of engagement you have with your audience. So, for
Wow.
example, I was sitting with Angelina Jolie's literary agent just pre-COVID. We're in New York at the Javits Center at a Starbucks table, and I'm pitching him. And all of a sudden, he's picking up his phone. He starts, and I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm busy judging the guy, and I'm thinking, God, that's rude. But it turns out he was looking up the author I was pitching him in that moment on YouTube, looked him up and said, engagement too small. Who else do you have? And he's not an isolated case. I've seen it
Right.
and heard it over and over and over again. So your numbers on social media, your visibility, are you out speaking? Publishers give book deals to go-getters who are already go-getting. So even if you're working on your first book, maybe you haven't been speaking, you haven't been really like out there in a bigger way, get yourself out there. You're
Yep.
seeding
So
your market, just get yourself out there, get your message out.
yeah, I love it. So everyone go to socialblade.com and check yourself out after this call for sure.
Kinds of numbers. I'll share with you the kinds of numbers
Yes.
that publishers are looking for as well. So, for example, a mid-range publisher wants to sell 3,500 to 5,000 books in their first year. Penguin Random House, Simon and Schuster, what's called the big five publishers, they want to sell 10,000 books in the first year. We have to prove, I'm using little air quotes there, we have to prove the potential for that those kinds of sales to get a book deal. If you don't have those numbers, do not get discouraged because there's this thing we could do called delegate. You don't have to be the person getting all your numbers. So, for example, I'm not like the promotions gal. It's not my lane, but I made a list of, I don't know, around 12 different people who I completely trust and I know do very high quality work. So anybody who wants that list, they all do like, here's your book review person, your Amazon bestseller person, your, national publicity, whatever it is. I've got the list of all these different people who have a different lane, each one of them who I completely trust. And I just like, here, do some informational interviews, see who you like, who you resonate with, who would be the best for you. So, minimally, what I see in terms of the book deals I get, and I'll share with you in the last 7 months, I've gotten 10 people book deals. That is a lot, folks. That is really a lot. Of the mix, I got 7 people publishers directly, and 3 went to top literary agents. And so, of the mix, there were 4 business books, a self help book on autism caregiving, a mind, body, spirit book. It actually just came out called Living a Conscious Life. Let's see, 4 business books, a whistleblower book, a memoir, a mind, body, spirit book, 2 novels. I mean, that's a big mix of stuff. So,
Wow, that is amazing.
minimally what publishers want to see, and I'm talking about bare bones minimum, are 10,000 people on whatever one social media platform where your demographic is. You can certainly have other people in other social media platforms. But for example, business book, HarperCollins, I'll tell you, HarperCollins Leadership, HarperCollins Business, Wiley, those publishers are going to pass if you're not up to 10,000 people.
So, like, I have a Facebook group that has 17,000. I have
Perfect.
a business
Yeah.
page that has 50,000. So,
Yes. I mean,
okay, good.
those are huge. Those are great numbers. Those are
Okay.
great numbers. But I'm saying if you don't have the numbers, don't get discouraged. There are people who can help build them. If you're not the person who wants to be on social media every single day doing
Yep.
whatever it is to build numbers ethically. I'm not talking about buying people, so it has to be ethical.
So that brings us to, what are the topics that these publishers are more likened to? And when I hear you talk about 4 business
Yes.
books, 2 novels, a memoir, um,
Yes.
how do we figure that part out? To write a book that they'll
Yes.
want instead of the book, just that I want to write? Like where
You
do
know,
those two things meet?
this has to do about positioning. I mean, I love to have conversations with people before they've written one word, even because it has to be about the right positioning. And I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was in New York pitching. For like 18 or 19 years, I was in New York every single year pre-COVID pitching, my list of. So, for example, the last time I was in New York, I had pre-COVID, I had 25 meetings in 2.5 days pitching 16 projects. And
Wow.
so 22 meetings with publishers, three with top literary agents. And so, I get to hear, what they're looking for, what they want. So I had a book at the time on happiness, related to happiness, and I'm pitching it, and I'm starting to get no's, like 5 no's in a row. Then I came across this agent, and they were telling me why. Because Marcy Shimoff, who wrote Happy for No Reason at the
Mhm.
time, she owned the happiness lane. The happy book, her happiness book was a New York Times bestseller. She
Yeah.
owned that lane. Nobody
And you
could
said
compete.
when you said the happiness book, I'm like, oh, I wonder if it was Marcy Shimoff. Like that's how
No,
much
it
she
wasn't.
owns the
So
happiness. Right?
that's right. So then I'm pitching it to an agent who said, what if you called this book about liberating yourself from fear? All of a sudden I started pitching that project, and every single meeting after that got a yes, 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 yes. They wanted to consider it. So again, it's about positioning. I was speaking with a top literary agent who has done bidding wars for some of my clients, and very, very big bidding wars, like six-figure advances. And I was asking her somewhat recently, like, what's selling? And she said, follow the New York Times bestseller list. And that'll tell you what's selling. I had a publisher reach out to me this past about 6 months ago saying, do you know anybody who has an AI book? AI obviously is very, very hot. And yes, I did. And so I sent him that person, and that person was offered a contract immediately. So AI is very, very hot. I want to discuss memoir because a lot of people are writing their memoirs. And, I sold one recently, but the problem is a lot of people are writing their memoirs. And typically, publishers they're not interested in most memoirs. They're just really not, unless the person's a celebrity, unless it's so
Right.
uniquely positioned and the numbers support it. So that doesn't mean don't tell your story, don't write it. It doesn't mean that, anything about that, but it doesn't mean that it's sellable either. So, I just have to say that because the majority of memoirs that I see are because, and my book, Crappy to Happy, was memoir form. Um, I went through all these crappy experiences here, how I transformed them. And like even one of my stories, how I found happiness by working for embezzlers. I mean, they're hysterical stories. Yeah. Yeah. I
Did
wound
you
up
have
getting
a
my
one
book.
woman show?
Well,
Wait a second. You,
yeah.
you did a
Okay.
one woman show, didn't you?
I did a show as a result. I was writing for a magazine, I didn't know I was working for embezzlers of the National Mind, Body, Spirit magazine at the time. It turned out they were. And so I never got paid. And it was like, oh my God, I need money. I wound up, this is many years ago. So this is like, 2000, whatever, 1999, long time ago. And I wound up doing a one-woman show called Comic Intervention for called Closet Visionaries and Almost Manifestors, a one-woman show except for the other people. And as a result of doing the show, I wound up getting my book deal because I had visibility. And so I
Uh,
said, if I hadn't worked for Bestlers, there's no way I would have wound up put myself on a stage. I was new to speaking. This was before I've given 500 talks.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I,
Oh my
I
God.
wound up with a publishing deal as a direct result of all the circuitous route of what happened from working for embezzlers. So people write memoir because I see a smiley face and a laugh going up there. People write memoir typically because you've overcome something and you want to help somebody else get through that experience. And
Mhm.
so I want to give you some advice in writing that's called prescriptive memoir. So if you've overcome some huge challenge, or you're in the middle of that challenge, but you want to write about it, and it's cathartic for you to write about it because you're healing in the process too. I say, we teach best what we need to learn. It's like I wasn't happy when I wrote Crappy to Happy. I wanted to find happiness. I wanted to know if it was possible for me to be happy in life because I wasn't a happy person up to that point. So I discovered how to get there in the process of writing my book. So I want to give you a quick setup for doing prescriptive memoir, which will make it more sellable because every question, the two questions I ask whenever I get a memoir in is this a book that's all about me? Or is this a book that's answering the question in the reader's mind, which is what's in it for me? Because if you want to sell your book, it better be that second question. What's
Right.
in it for me? You must answer that. So here's a setup for you. Story followed by steps. Story steps, story steps. And what do I mean by that? So I would tell a story from my life. And then after it, I had 4 steps to happiness now. So there's a theme per story. What is the overall theme that carries throughout your book? In my case, it was 4 steps to happiness now. And each of those
Love.
steps were either actions or insights. You might want to write that down if you're writing memoir. Action steps or insights based on that story.
I need to go back and transcribe. Like I started taking notes and I've written some things out, and I'm like, just be present because I can go back and take notes on all of it.
Yes. And so, like, if you're doing the story steps kind of format, then I would say see if you can be consistent. If there's 4 steps, there's 4 steps. My second book, The Power of Miracle Thinking, there are 3 miracle thinking tips based on each story. And there are certain like word length or sentence length. And so there's a consistency throughout. So I'd say, be consistent. There are 2 types of brains that I've discovered in terms of your writing process. So there are linear people, and linear people are going to create the outline. And
Mhm.
then here's my chapters, and here are my detailed chapter summaries. They've created a roadmap, and that's how they get to where they want to go.
And let
Then
me
there are,
just say, as you're
yes.
describing that, I'm thinking that feels paralyzing to me.
Okay, so then the other brain type, which is my type, which is what I started talking about at the beginning, is process oriented, where like I talked about, writing your chunks of gold, whatever's coming out of your mind, or facts, figures, whatever it is, the statistics, whatever it is, the quotes, everything, and just write it all, and then you're going to start rearranging all the pieces and figuring it out as you go.
Yeah,
And
and
they're just different brains.
yeah, and I think so that is me, that second one. And where I get stuck, and because I have, and I'm, full disclosure, y'all, I'm just like all of you. I've got those stories and those chunks and those brain dumps, but how do I put it together? That's where I've gotten stuck.
Right, 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 right. That's why, we offer book coaching. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So, for example, I'm really not here to be self-promotional, but I'll just share a process. Um, so, for example, when we're doing book coaching, we start by helping people create detailed chapter summaries. We're going to create the roadmap from which people can write. So then there's very clear direction. Oh, yeah, that's right. This chunk belongs here. This chunk belongs there. Some of the writing that you're doing might just be for your own personal healing and catharsis and may never show up in a book. That certainly happened for me in Crappy to Happy.
Yeah. All right, good. Oh my
So,
goodness. We are at the halfway mark, which means
okay.
we get to open up and give everybody the opportunity to tap into the brilliance of Randy Pizer. And she's going to give you the gift, if you would like to take her up on it, of sharing more of her brilliance. So I'm going to get everybody ready to open up the lines. If you're with us on Zoom, you'll just raise your hand. If you're with us on Facebook, you could put your question in the comment thread, and I'll go ahead and bring it to the table, so to speak. And then, Randy, how can we get in touch with you? What are some next steps? All that good
So,
stuff.
author1stop.com. That's the easiest thing. My schedule link is there. And the one is spelled out ONE. Author1stop.com is just a really easy way to get a hold of me.
It sure is. Thank you for making that nice and simple. She's a smart cookie,
Yes.
too. She understands this marketing stuff. I love it. I love it. All right. Are you ready to take some comments, questions, share insights, ahas? I'm telling you, friends, if you are here listening in, now is the time to ask a question. You can just tell how right she is. And we have our first question from, is that Peg Duchesne? Good
Hi,
morning, Peg.
so good to see you here. I know that we met, I know you met Nancy through Jill Lublin. I believe you and I met through Nancy Jutton. And I'm so glad to see you here. I loved your conversation about social media and especially the ethical and organic reach being so important. I can't agree with you more. And I have your Crappy to Happy book and we'll pull it off the shelf and reread it. I remember when I first got it a couple of years back, I just absolutely loved it. And I love the story behind it and how you were on the Eat, Love, Pray movie. The book was on the Eat, Love, Pray movie. It's just such a great story. And I love that you're pouring into the women's prosperity community. Happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
I know. Isn't she awesome, Peg? You knew that already, though.
She
That's great.
absolutely is awesome.
So
Thanks.
good.
I didn't have a question, but thank you for your gift. I'll love to pop on a call and have go into more depth with you.
Please do.
Very good. All right. Let me bring up a question from the Facebook community. Valerie Ann asks, Randy, if we're self-publishing, I am not very visible yet. How can I protect my content?
Protection is a legal question. I have a literary attorney who I refer anyone to for anything related to anything legal.
Don't
Let's
you
talk
love how
about,
she covers herself? That was
you
brilliant.
know,
Right. Don't
I'm
give
not the
advice if
legal
it's
bingo.
not your lane. That
No,
was really good.
but let's talk about someone who is self-published first and then says to me and says, can you take my self-published book to a traditional publisher? Probably not. And I probably can't take your next book that you write to a traditional publisher unless we have a way to, I'm going to put more air quotes, prove sales. And here's the reason. If a mid-range publisher wants to sell 3,500 to 5,000 books in the first year, and you have self-published, you have a track record of sales now on Amazon. And if you haven't sold 3,500 books in the first year or somewhere thereabouts, it's going to be really, really hard to get any publisher to pick up that book or your next book. And so if that's the case, don't despair. Do a GoFundMe. We have to prove the numbers. We have to show how those sales are going to happen for your next book. And I've had authors who have done that, who have done the GoFundMe. They have, a big list of, committed buyers coming in. Or, if you already are out speaking somewhere, if you can ask the places, the coordinators where you're going to be speaking, if you can arrange for bulk book sales, things like
Right.
that, where they're buying 50 books, 100 books, 200 books, whatever the size of the audience, that's all going to help to prove sales.
Very good. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask a related question. So when
Sure.
they're looking up the book sales, so can I, as the author or publisher, go on and order 100 author copies? Does that count towards the 3,500?
I really don't know how to answer that.
Okay.
All I know is that, if you were doing that on Amazon, I would imagine that would, because I was on a Zoom call one time with an acquisitions editor. Those are the people who acquire the books. And I'm pitching her, and she turns to her, she has a big desktop monitor to her side. We're speaking via laptop or whatever. And I'm pitching her, and the author has prior book, and she looks that author up, and within 2 seconds has her sales numbers. So all she's looking at, I would imagine, are sales numbers. So
Mhm.
if you're buying your book or you have somebody else buying that book and those sales numbers are high, if you're willing to do something like that, well, yeah, that would certainly, I would imagine that would be a workaround.
Yeah, I think that would be a workaround, and or because I know that I do that, like I buy bulk copies of my book to take with me to a speaking engagement. I did bulk pocket, I'll buy 100 and take them with me to the speaking because I know people are going to buy my book there.
The difference is probably going to be if you're buying it wholesale or retail.
I'm buying
So,
whole.
right. So I don't know if that would count or not. I really don't.
All right, good. I
Yes.
love that. When she knows, and if she don't know, she tell you.
Yeah.
I love this. Is
Yes.
this must be New York? Are you originally from New York?
What's that? The
Originally
screen.
from New York?
Am I from New York?
Yeah,
Well, no. I tell people I'm from Connecticut, but my father was from New York. My mother was from New Jersey, and I got the best of both accents.
that's perfect. I think it's
Yes.
maybe it's the Northeastern in us that we'll tell you the truth, no, even if you don't like it. All right, let's go to our next caller, which is going to be Mary Jane Charles.
Good morning, ladies. How are you? It's so nice to see you. I visit Wednesday each week, and this morning it's just a delight. I have a book in my head that has been rumbling around, and I didn't have a focus because I had so many chunks. And to put it in that style, I was like, yes, that's me. So I will continue chunking, and at some point there will be a common thread, but it doesn't matter right now what order. It's like streams of consciousness.
Exactly. Exactly. For those of us, myself and Nancy, who are process oriented, just stay in the flow of it, stay in the joy of it. That which is seated in joy can only result in joy.
So
So
good.
enjoy the process. I have no attachment. This is interesting for anyone who owns a business or on this call. When I come to every single call, what I say is I have no attachment and no agenda. I want what is highest and best for each person, and that's it. That can look like self-publishing. It could look like traditional publishing. Maybe if somebody wants to self-publish, they don't have the numbers, they don't really want to build their numbers. I can help with the content side of things. I have no agenda. And it's amazing if you come to your business and approach every single person with no attachment and no agenda. You're just here to help them achieve their highest and best, no matter what that looks like, whether you're the answer or you're not the answer. I
Just be
promise you, your business will soar. Your business will absolutely soar because you will be attracting the right people.
love that. So good, so good. I love Peggy Lee's comment. My question was already answered. She's gotten validation and learned anew. So isn't this beautiful? Like Peggy Lee is a publisher as well, and we learn from each other. You shared how you learn from others because when
Yes,
you show up in that space with no agenda to be that open slate for learning and expansion and giving, right? It's so beautiful. Don't you love her? I know. All right. Deborah Morrison has a question. Deborah, your line is open.
Thanks so much,
Probably.
Nancy and Randy. What are you? Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
it was going out a little bit. I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Randy, for these wonderful tidbits and truths. I appreciate it very much. Especially, I know that when you self-publish a book and then you ask someone, "Hey, could you take this to a book publisher?" They'll say, "Absolutely not." But I wasn't aware of the next one. You're already kind of kicking yourself as far as the next one. So that was important. And thank you. Now, I hear and haven't had time to research that the New York Times sold their bestseller list and that C-Suite Network bought it. Are either of those true?
I have no information about that. Absolutely none. I've never heard that. C-Suite Network has their own bestseller list, but in terms of
I
them
understand.
buying some other list, I couldn't even speak to that. I have no idea. But I
Yeah,
will
that was always the
investigate.
bellwether.
Investigate. But no, I haven't heard that.
Okay.
All
Thank you
right.
kindly. Appreciate this Social Blade site too. Very helpful.
Mhm. Yeah, I
You're,
can't wait
you're
to check
very
that out.
welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Deborah. And I know you have many books inside of you, and with your visibility, everything you've been doing over the past year or two, especially Deb, it might be possible to get you that book contract, that book
Love
deal.
it.
No,
You know,
just thinking.
Would love it.
I'll share another route also, which is sponsorship. One of the books that I'm personally writing is called Bald Courage. I went through breast cancer, chemo, and radiation back in 2012. I was fighting for my life, folks, absolutely fighting for my life. And the hardest thing I've ever been through was chemo. And so I'm writing a book called Bald Courage, and it's just basically one nugget per page that's going to help someone who's going through chemo to just get through the damn day, every single day. Just be able to open that book, not a huge book, smaller book, open that book, look at any page, get one nugget to help you get through the day. And so I was thinking sponsorship. So what I'm going to do, the way sponsorship works, and I'm not the queen of sponsorship because it's not my lane, but again, I know people who are. But the basics of it are, and you don't have to have your huge numbers as far as I know. So the basics are you find a corporation who's invested with your theme. In my case, that's going to be CVS. I want to go after CVS corporate because so much of the medication I got, and I was on a ton of medication at, back all those years ago, came from CVS. So I want to go to CVS corporate and send them a business proposal so that the book is donated to breast cancer organizations,
Phenomenal.
nonprofits. And so there is a huge amount of money that can be made with sponsorship. Huge, because the book is gifted by the corporation whose name appears on the inside. This book is a gift of. So they're getting their advertising, which is both a win-win for them because it's also a giant tax write-off for them. And you're making, $1, $2, $3, or $5 per book. But let's say there's like 50,000 books going out. I mean, there's a huge amount of money that can be made in sponsorship. So that's what I'll say about that.
Interesting.
This whole interview was epic, but that was a mic drop. Thank you, Randy.
I know, right? Right. Get on a call with her because this is just the tip of the iceberg of brilliance.
I mean, there's foreign rights. Think about your book, even self-published books, foreign rights.
Mm-hmm.
Be in touch with me about that. One of my connections, anybody with a great children's book, I am completely connected with the gal who did SpongeBob and Cocomelon. So for animation, I mean, there are just so many. I have so many different connections, that I just pass along to people. So,
awesome. Yeah, Deb, you sparked a great nugget she gave us. So thank you.
Happy about that.
Yeah, amazing. All right, let's go. Thank you, Deborah. Let's go to some more callers. We're going to take from Tallahassee, 850-245. Do you have a question?
Yes. Hello. This is Joy.
Hi, Joy.
And I'm actually Joy Cross, originally from New Jersey, Randy. And I'm writing my memoir now. It's called Joy, Trials, and Faith. And what I'm talking about is closed adoption and then being adopted into abuse and the traumas I endured, 2 rapes, generational hatred for those in the family who can't pass as white. I'm biracial. And how I moved forward by going to college and joining the Army and getting into military intelligence. And then I had a near-death experience, marriage, birth of my twins, and they were the only DNA family I knew until my 40s, and that's a different book. My divorce and the chapter on why and right now I'm writing a chapter on why I'm writing my memoir, and it's going to be published November 12th in Courage Under Siege, which is Peggy Lee Hanson's book.
Oh, fantastic. Good. So what's your question? Amazing. First of all, you have courage to be sharing all of this, so thank you for that. And what a beautiful place to do that introduction of writing your story in Peggy Lee's anthology. So beautiful. I want to acknowledge you and your question for Randy.
Yes, I was wondering about the tailgate on social media. How do I just go through that website that you provided to get information on that?
Yeah, just jump on my calendar and and let's just have a very, very brief talk, and I will. I'm happy to send anyone here, my promotional referral partners. because it's
You
it's
know,
not my lane. So
Randy, I had just one more thing.
sure.
I also have an author. Her name is Trace Hickman. She's the author of several books. The ones I've read is called Blindsided and The Other Side. And she's interested in writing my memoir as fiction. Is it okay to self-publish my book? And then we're supposed to be working on the fiction, making my book fiction,
So yeah.
starting in the
Um,
fall.
if a book really is memoir, publishers typically prefer that it stay nonfiction. Uh, I mean, you could write it as fiction. I cannot say at this point whether it would be sellable or not. I was at a conference pre-COVID where I was invited as a guest to be at this conference, and there were like 400 women. It was a writers' conference for women. This was again pre-COVID. It was 2017. There were 400 women in that conference, and I think 397 of them were writing their abuse memoirs. Abuse, it's horrid. The experience that you've overcome, obviously, amazing that you could do it. Doesn't mean that it's sellable. The important thing, especially with this kind of memoir, are the steps, making it prescriptive.
Actually,
In terms of making it fiction, I really can't say. I mean, typically our process is if somebody brings me a manuscript that they've written, we start by reading the entire thing and using the comments bar in Word to point out anything we're seeing that needs to be strengthened, and also discerning in that first reading round, is this a book that we think a publisher will buy just based on content, not about the business side of publishing where we must have the numbers as well, but just on the content side. And so,
Okay.
we'd
All right,
have
sounds
to.
like a call. Yeah. So go
Yeah, I'll
to,
make.
thank you. Yeah, make an appointment. Go to author1stop.com. So authorOnestop.com.
Yes.
Everything you need, it's
Okay.
one stop.
Thank
All
you.
right, you're welcome. All right, you got time for a couple more questions. So let's
I
go
see
to,
that. May I say, Olivia has had a hand up the entire time. I don't know if you've seen that.
I
I
have, it
see.
was exactly who I was going to
Okay,
next.
I just
Yep, I
wanted to
got
make
it.
sure we got her.
Thank you. And isn't she amazing? She wants to make sure people are taken care of. Yes,
That's true.
Olivia will be next.
That is divine timing because I'm so excited. I'm actually enrolled in Marcy Shimoff's Happiness for No Reason certified trainer, and I was wanting to create some books or create a book at the same time.
Yeah.
It's great
Marcy,
to know.
I'll just share. I'll share. Marcy does refer clients to me for help with their books. So,
Oh, really? Okay, that
yeah.
sounds exciting. Yay! Because I'm like, well, what do I write about? Because the market is so full. And then
Yes.
on top of that, I was thinking, my question is like, if I could make it a Christian book on happiness to kind of
Yeah.
narrow my market.
Yes, absolutely. I don't pitch Christian books because there are too few Christian publishers that were showing up at the book shows, but I have the gal who handles Christian stuff. So, if you jump on my calendar so I can make that introduction for you, and then, you'll be in the Christian lane.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Sure.
You'll be sharing your information, or you said it'll be in the chat. Where we can contact you and all.
Sure. It's author1stop.com, and there's schedule link right there on every page.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Just jot that down, author1stop.com. It's one stop to connect with Randy on all levels, so it's perfect.
Thank you,
Excellent.
Randy.
You're very welcome.
So good. All right. I think I've covered the questions that we've had. If you do have a question or comment for Randy, raise your hand, unmute yourself, do something along those lines, and we will go ahead. Christy Swenger, I saw your hand up earlier today. Did you have a question, Christy?
Thank you, Nancy. I went on and off, up and down. Gosh, Randy, my goodness, such nuggets and some life nuggets. This is so valuable. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm taking notes and I will sign up for a quick schedule with you on your website. But if you could just go back a little bit when you're talking about the GoFundMe for self-publishers. Can you just
Yes.
give a little more, if you could, just a little ditty, what that might look like, please?
Actually, I cannot because I'm not the GoFundMe gal.
Oh, I
So
love it. Okay.
I had two women from the Métis tribe in Canada, an indigenous tribe that's never been represented in print, and they created an oracle deck. So there was the gallery level artist, and then there was the author from this tribe. And they did a GoFundMe, and they pre-sold 450 decks. I'm going,
Mm.
And I'm thinking, well, this is very uniquely positioned, right? I mean, they're from an indigenous tribe that's never been represented in print. They're powerful women from this tribe, which I personally love. And 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 so I was thinking, I want to take this project to Hay House. Hay House being, the number one mind, body, spirit publisher in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I know because I've sat in New York and with the Hay House publisher. I know what they're looking for. And so what that publisher had told me when I was in person sitting with her, she said, we look for authors who have a mailing list of 100,000 people, and we examine the open rate on that email because the only thing the author can control that's not controlled by an algorithm is their email list. Okay. So between the two of them, author and artist, they had about 20,000 people, certainly not at 100,000 people, but they had pre-sold 450 decks. So in my mind, I'm thinking, what the hey, Hay House? I'm going to pitch it. What's the worst that can happen? They can say no, right? So all nonfiction requires a business plan of 20 to 30 pages called a book proposal. I'm a master of the book proposal. I've written proposals that have gotten these six-figure deals. I know where these proposals need to be. So I made sure that proposal was crisp, clean, and ready to go. And I pitched it. I pitched it on a Thursday at 9 a.m. At 9:20, only 20 minutes later, I got an email back from that publisher saying, this project looks phenomenal. Let me do a deeper dive into the proposal. I'll get back to you. The next morning, there was a meeting set up with the authors, of the author and artist. And so are there workarounds? Yes. And I actually wound up selling it elsewhere because Hay House on their Oracle decks had a 3-year turnaround. 3 years to production, and my authors wanted that project out. I sold it elsewhere, but still.
What a great ride.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Great question. Thank you, Christy. All right, let's go to our probably final caller, which will be Dr. Roz. Bring it in, girl.
Hey, Miss Randy. You're loved, appreciated, celebrated, valued, and most cherished. Y'all excuse me because I'm getting my walk on. You hear the dogs barking, they would start barking, they know me. But I just want to say I didn't get to listen because I accidentally took a fall. So y'all, I was nursing myself on the curb. But I know this is going to be an awesome listen to. And my question, because I came in when you were talking about the tools of money and how to gain. My question was, I guess, the pre-sales for a self-publisher, if that makes sense, the pre-sales or what maybe you might have on that part of it. Did that make sense?
I'm not clear on your question.
You were talking about I think, and maybe I missed it, and I might have to just set up an appointment with you because maybe I didn't get to hear everything. But when you talked about group fund GoFundMe, that's creating funds, right? So, and then you were talking about something else, sponsorship. So it made me think about, if you're self-publishing, how do you feel, or do you have any experience on pre-sales of whatever that project is?
It's not my lane. So
Okay.
What I said earlier, my lane is to help people get their content right through analysis, editing, ghostwriting, book coaching, whatever it takes to get there, and getting the book sold to a traditional publisher. That is my lane.
Okay, good deal. And I thank you. I know that I'll be able, I started off, wow, by walking on summer mornings with WOW. So this was just very memorable for me for my beginnings with WPN this morning. So I will go take my next walk listening to what I missed so that I will be get myself scheduled with you. So thank you so much, Nancy and the WOW team. I call them my sisters trio. And Randy, thank you so much, because I also was reminded of my bestie that she now has her angel wings. She has a book called The Unlikely Gift, which she's talking about a cancer walk. So thank you so much for your pressing, and probably God even downloading more creativity into you for what you're doing now and your giving heart. Thank you so much. And I ciao for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, for seeing the possibility of using your experience, your wisdom, your expertise to share with others. That's what this is really all about, putting out a book that will have what's in it for the reader at the end of the day. So you're making a difference. It's a beautiful thing. Randy, you are a light, you're refreshing, you are a seed of joy in my day. So I know the rest of my day will be phenomenal.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you everyone for joining us. Be sure to schedule your complimentary session with Randy. Just go to authoronestop.com and get out there and keep on spreading your seeds of joy. So thanks again. Bye everyone. Bye Randy.
Bye for now, everyone.